Welcome back. You're watching News Center with me, Ashmit Kumar. Now, trade negotiations between India and United States continue to gather steam. Sergio Gore, the U.S. ambassador to India, has said that the telephonic conversation between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump was a great call between two friends. The Indian government said that both leaders reviewed progress in the strategic partnership and agreed to work closely to address shared challenges and advance common interests. The phone call between Modi and Trump was their first since Diwali. Remember, both countries want to seal a framework agreement by the end of this year. And to help us understand what this road ahead now looks like, how far away this trade deal is, I'm now joined by Pramit Pal Chaudhuri, practice head of the South Asia division at Eurasia Group. Mr. Chaudhuri, thank you so much for joining us. Would just like to quickly draw your attention to a couple of triggers here. Number one, the U.S. negotiators are here. Number two, there are reports of India committing to some form of defense purchases from American suppliers. Number three, we now have this latest call take place between the leaders of the two countries. And the ambassador here telling us that things are as the best they've ever been between the two countries. The question I want to ask you is this the closest that India-U.S. have been to a trade deal in the last 12 months?
No, not really. I mean, let's put it this way. It's hard to tell because we don't have the actual negotiation details. But we know that roughly in a period running between June and September, India and the U.S. negotiators actually came to at least a first tranche trade agreement. But in each case, President Trump rejected it on the grounds that he felt India had not made sufficient concessions, largely in the realm of agriculture and in some cases goods. This is now the fifth such occasion where the negotiators have more or less concluded an agreement and they're now waiting for President Trump to give the political green signal. So the question really is the signaling from Trump positive? Because he alone really holds the key to this. Prime Minister Modi, the Indian system, has been more than happy to agree to the previous agreements. There, I think, yes, the signposts are positive. One is that, of course, that they're actually talking, and this conversation, it seems, didn't really have any purpose. In other words, the previous calls have been over Modi's birthday or congratulating Trump on his diplomatic efforts. This seems to be being quite impromptu, which is a good sign. Trump runs a very personalized foreign policy, and the fact that there was a gap between June and all the way till September was in fact a very bad sign in the relationship. And we have reports that Modi refused to talk to Trump at least 3 times during that period, which is somewhat unprecedented in diplomacy. Now that they are talking, and they are talking, it seems, on a reasonably random basis. Second, as you mentioned, the USTR team is here, and though they are not here for any genuine line-by-line conversations, what we do know is that they are very, very close to a first tranche agreement. I don't think we will have time to complete it this year. But I think you saw Anant Nageshwar, the chief economic advisor of the Indian government, say by the end of this fiscal year, he would expect to do.
Right. Let me follow that up with the Indian perspective. Is there now a sense of urgency creeping in? A lot of exporters are shipping goods despite the tariff losses in the hope that there will be a trade agreement. Does this put India in a back foot that we're now eager to close a deal as soon as possible, that the clock is ticking for India to wrap this up, to ensure that there is no severe hit coming in for Indian exporters, the textile industries, the industries that are impacted?
I actually think to some degree what's happened now is that both the Indians and the Indians, I think the American view was that they had leverage on India, both in terms of the 25% punitive tariff on Russian oil, as well as the original 25% tariff. But what's actually happened is the Indian economy has thrived despite the tariffs. So, of course, it would do better if the tariffs weren't there. But, when you're recording 8% plus growth in a quarter, very clearly the tariffs are not having the kind of impact that Trump has. Trump is very transactional. He's also a very aggressive negotiator. As you can see, he's done with almost every other country in the world. It's not specific to us. And I think we're starting to see the American side conclude that actually these pressure points are not working with India. So therefore, you're moving to a negotiating process, which is much more one of trying to get a deal rather than trying to, should we say, force the other into a sort of coercive
Sure.
status. So I think, therefore, we're actually in a
You
better shape to where than we were before.
We're running out of time. I'll just come to you for one final question that for long, India has maintained that there are red lines that it has as far as agri products are concerned. To get that final nod of approval from Donald Trump, will it require India to perhaps make certain compromises when it comes to those red lines on agri products?
Yes, I think that for Trump, that's really the only thing that really matters to him. It's his MAGA farmers in Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska, who are the core of his political constituency. If he does not give them anything, for him, this trade deal is useless. So I think what the compromise area is that since India does not allow genetically modified food crops, at least at present, the actual grain we will not necessarily buy, but products produced by those grains we have allowed into this country before. We are one of the largest importers of soybean oil in the world. We import livestock feed. We import ethanol, of certain made from corn. We
Right.
don't necessarily need all of it right now, but that gives you that space to make a concession on agriculture that would fit in with our requirements.
Right, Mr. Chaudhary, an interesting perspective that despite the red lines, there is wiggle room available to India that it can exploit going forward as a part of this trade negotiations. But I'd like to thank you, Mr. Chaudhary, for joining us, being a part of this conversation. Mr. Chaudhary there saying that it's unlikely that we do it by the end of this year, but optimistic that perhaps by the end of this fiscal FY26, that's March 2026, there could be light at the end of the tunnel. But with that, it's a wrap on this edition of News Center. More news and updates will continue right here on CNBC TV18.
"26 years of CNBC TV18